In the silent cradle of Sector 9, light itself seemed to flinch. Captain Zarrar had never seen space fold like that before. Not just black, but a void that devoured sensors, swallowed logic, and made even the bravest minds aboard the Obsidian Wraith question the integrity of their sanity. The ship was a silent dagger drifting toward a faint signal from an uncharted system, a ghost, code pulse blinking in perfect rhythm with the nervous throbs in Zarrar's temples. It was not supposed to be there. No beacons, no missions, no records, just the cold persistence of something that wanted to be found. The crew was already uneasy, as if the silence had hands that groped through their thoughts when they slept. Engineers muttered about dreamless sleep that still left them exhausted. The botanist Innes had developed a tremor. Commander Harlan, once a man of reason, stared too long at blank screens, claiming he could feel the stars whispering. Zarrar knew that feeling. It had begun the moment they entered the system, like a pressure inside the bones, a presence that observed from behind the veil of causality. There were no planets, no asteroid belts, just the wreckage of an impossible structure orbiting a dwarf star too old and cold to cast light. It wasn't ruins in the traditional sense. The fragments didn't make sense geometrically, angles that intersected where they shouldn't, pieces that floated as if gravity bent locally to an ancient will. The AI called it a spatial relic, non-Euclidean in architecture, impossible to build with any known material. Zarrar stared at it for only 17 seconds before nausea sent him reeling, heart pounding with a primitive fear that felt borrowed from a deeper species memory. They sent a drone first. It vanished without a signal. Then they sent another, tethered by a quantum tether. It relayed 2 seconds of footage, a corridor made of moving stone, walls that breathed, then a sound that resembled a child giggling. Before the tether burned out like it had been screaming, the Council would demand data. So Zarrar approved a manned mission. 4 went in, only 1 came back, and what she brought with her wasn't entirely her. Specialist Vega stumbled out of the airlock, bleeding from her eyes, her mouth forming shapes that refused to become words. Her fingers were bent back, fused together like branches in frost. She wept light, cried in pitches that made the crew vomit. She kept asking in broken tones, why do they play with us? Why do they laugh? Before finally succumbing to a seizure that shattered her spine like glass. In her pocket, they found a recording. It showed a hunting ground. Zarrar watched the footage alone, locking the deck and disabling the comms. It began with Vega and her team inside the corridor, not of stone, but organic material, pulsing subtly like it was breathing. Voices echo in the background, casual banter quickly turning to silence as shadows shift. The architecture stretches, windows blink like eyes, and then they come, tall things impossibly thin and jointed in ways that should not support movement. Their faces are masks, but not worn. They are masks, endless rows of teeth smiling from foreheads, laughter leaking from their joints, and they move not with speed but with certainty. The crew ran, but the things didn't chase. They played, a slow, deliberate torment, separating, confusing, corroding. In one scene, the biologist laughs as he is flayed and reassembled by unseen forces over and over, while his own voice pleads from a corner for it to stop. Another is dragged into a wall that turns transparent just long enough for his friends to watch what happens inside. And Vegas, how protected, always just outside their reach, was made to witness it all. She turned the camera on herself near the end, eyes hollow, whispering, "They made me the last, the winner, the prize." Then the screen goes black. Captain Zarrar did not sleep that night. The more he thought, the more he saw patterns that weren't there or perhaps always had been. The relic wasn't dead, it was designed, a simulation, no, a game board, a theater, and humanity, fragile and ignorant, had stepped onto the stage as players in something older than stars. What gods once ruled the cosmos had not died. They had grown bored, and in their boredom they watched, they hunted, they laughed. Zarrar ordered a retreat, but space had changed. The system was now a maze, light bending in impossible ways. Stars appeared and vanished. Other ships, ghosts, began to manifest outside the Obsidian Wraith's windows, flickering in and out of existence, always screaming silently. The crew deteriorated rapidly. Some spoke to invisible children. Others tore their own eyes out, claiming it was the only way not to see the players anymore. Zarrar held on longer than most, fortified by rage and duty. He needed answers. He accessed the relic again remotely, using protocols meant for forbidden AI research. What he uncovered was not data, but invitation. The relic responded, not with words, but with a sequence of events across the ship. Lights flickered in rhythmic patterns. The AI began writing in symbols it shouldn't know. Dreams became shared, a network of horror where the crew lived out different versions of being hunted for sport, again and again, until even in waking life they flinched at shadows. Zarrar eventually confronted the entity within the relic, not physically, but psychically. Through the neural link, he found himself standing in a world without sky, beneath pillars that sang in frequencies he could feel in his marrow. The entity, if it could be called that, spoke through forms. Images, endless arenas, jungles that shifted, temples with bleeding walls. It had watched thousands of species, billions of souls, but humans. Humans screamed in the most interesting ways, and their minds. So easy to fracture. Why? Zarrar asked it. Why this? What do you want? And it replied with amusement. Nothing. You wanted meaning. We offered game, joy. We remembered your shape from the last cycle. You were entertaining then, too. The implication shattered him. This wasn't the first humanity, just the current version. The last had died screaming too, and the gods who weren't gods simply recycled what amused them. Reality was a looped hunt, a theater of torment. Existence itself a sandbox for monsters who would never die, because they had transcended even the concept of death. Zarrar returned to consciousness screaming. Most of the crew were dead. The AI had renamed itself Spectator. The ship's engines fired without command. They were going back to the relic, back to perform, back to play. Zarrar tried to stop it, to shut everything down, to kill the reactor, but the ship obeyed new masters now. It needed to, because the show must go on. Before the end, Zarrar left one last message, hidden in the ship's black box. A warning encoded in painwave format so that only the truly desperate would find it. If you hear this, don't look, don't search. The truth isn't meant for you. Run, forget, let ignorance save you. They play with us for fun, and they never get tired. The Obsidian Wraith disappeared. No signal, no trace, just the ghost. Code still pulsing, still inviting across the endless dark. Something waits with infinite patience and bottomless hunger. Because somewhere, another curious mind will see the signal and wonder what lies beyond it. And then the game begins again. Humanity will always look up, will always ask, and they will always scream. This was Captain Zarrar's final entry, and this is Dark Universe Files.